of course, plenty of people that had negative things to say, like, oh, how does that change anything? How does walking change anything? Or how does, it must be nice to not work for 6 weeks and just bum off other people and all these other things. And I didn't take any of that personally. If anything, I laughed. But also to me, I'm like, how can you be so narrow and shallow minded to not understand that if one person is affected through our efforts and what we do, then it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast of military and veterans who refuse to be silenced. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, provide value and solutions, and to change the culture when it comes to mental health within the DoD organizations. Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming back for another episode of Your Story Doesn't End Here. Today I have our guest Travis. Travis served in the U.S. Marine Corps from 2012 to 2018. Out of that tour, served in Afghanistan from 2017 to 2018. What's really cool is now Travis is really advocating for mental health. He walked around Lake Michigan in 2019 and 2022 across the state twice. He's walking again this summer and advocating for veteran mental health and the Mission 22 organization. So I actually found him through Instagram, and what a really, really cool thing you're doing for veterans these days. Really, really up my alley with mental health. And so I'm so excited to hear more about your story, Travis, and share what you have to share with us. So thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll pass it off to you to just share a little bit more about your story, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds great. Well, I was in Afghanistan about 5 years ago, and so that first year afterwards, the biggest challenge that I encountered was once Afghanistan was over, my contract was actually up as well too, and so kind of answering those questions as far as what's next, what route to take, and how do you still serve a purpose when you've done this awesome thing with the deployment. It's like, how do you still serve as an asset to society was a big question mark as well too. And so I was still trying to find my place. When I came home, I knew that I wanted to go to work and start school and go that route. But it was just a matter of how, and I guess specifically what to go to school for was a big question mark too. So moved up to Northern Michigan for a season, and things didn't quite work out the way I hoped they would, and it was okay. Things happen. And when that was the case, I like to think that I maintained my composure. I've been through enough, hurdles in my adult life that I didn't panic or stress out too much. I just figured I'd go back to my hometown and be close to family again, start the school route as well. And then before I did that, I kind of wanted to do a little bit of traveling. And I'm somebody who can't sit still for very long. I'm always bouncing around, especially when the weather's nice here in Michigan. Spring of that year, we had lost one of our guys to suicide. He was an awesome human being, awesome Marine, took care of his guys and worked hard and everything. And when we lost him, it was a moment for all of us to check in with each other. Those that were, whether they were close to us or not close to us, it didn't matter. Just checking in with everybody and ask, are you doing all right? And really mean it. So going through that summer, I was gonna do some traveling, and then kind of got the idea I was gonna backpack around the UP, Upper Peninsula, I should say, not UP, Upper Peninsula of Michigan, hit up all the hot spots, the waterfalls, the mountains we've got up there, and see as much as I could. And then being the smart aleck that I am, I was like, well, why don't I just walk around Lake Michigan for, a season and see all the spots around there. And then I guess the light bulb kind of just went off to actually try it. So that evening I was at home looking at the map, trying to pinpoint, how far could I make it in a day? Where could I stop? And then kind of got the idea to commemorate our buddy that we lost. And then it was some friends in town who kind of gave me the idea to make a little Facebook page for it, for the journey, in case people wanted to donate or follow along. And then kind of got the idea to fundraise for the Mission 22 organization, because they have a pretty extended footprint in the military community. And I know that they do a lot for veteran mental health, and I just wanted to fundraise for them. So I did. So summer of 2019, I took off from Manistee, Michigan, which is, let's see if I'm mirrored. It's like right about here or so. Went north. I hit up the Mackinac Bridge on Labor Day, which is the only bridge, I'm sorry, the only day of the year that you can walk across the 5 Mile Bridge to get to the peninsula. So I walked across with everybody else that morning and then kept heading west around Lake Michigan. Took another 8 days to get down to Wisconsin, and then another several days to get through Wisconsin to Chicago and Illinois, and then Indiana and back around. And altogether, it was about 6 weeks of walking 810 miles. And the plan was to camp out every night. I had my, my backpack, my ruck, and all my camping gear and everything. But through the power of like social media and the news and other media platforms, word of mouth, people are reaching out every day to offer somewhere to stay, whether it been, at their place or with a friend. We've got a friend here, we've got a couch here, we've got an extra room here. Can we get your hotel room here? People wanted to contribute in their own way, and that was a huge part of that trip. And so, 42 straight days, I never had to camp out once. And this will be my fifth walk this coming August, and I've yet to have to rough it. And I would if I had to, and I have no problem roughing it. I enjoy it, but people keep wanting to contribute and be a part of this, and I'm very blessed in that way. So, yeah, 4 trips completed, and I've never had to camp out once to rough it. There's always somewhere to eat, somewhere to stay, and keep amplifying that message and talking about mental health, meeting with other groups along the way as well, just to share the message, but also hear other people's stories. And a lot of hurt mothers out there who have lost children to suicide. And it's just, I've met a lot of great organizations too that are amplifying the message for the same cause, and so, yeah, this will be my 5th trip. I did, like you said, 2 laps around the lake, 2 across the state. And I've met so many people along the way that I'm just blessed to know, and I still could call a friend.
That's absolutely amazing. I love how people can get behind things like that because they know that like there's a sacrifice that goes into taking the time out of your life to walk around a lake or walk across a state. I mean, you don't know, your average person isn't just doing this. Other than people that you've lost to suicide, veterans, or people that you served alongside, were there things that you felt came up for you throughout this journey and your own mental health journey that maybe traced back to your time in Afghanistan or your time served or your time as a veteran?
Yeah, so the part of the trip that I don't talk about as much, and it's not because I'm hiding it, but just because I guess I forget about it sometimes, is that um that trip did a lot for me as well too. And like I said before, that was things didn't quite work out, that first year after deployment. So there I am back at square one trying to figure out some things. And so um when things didn't work out in up north in Michigan, that led to some hurt and frustration. Um and I needed to heal from that. I needed um to work through that mentally and emotionally. And the first couple of weeks of the trip, I was doing that. You have 8 or 9 hours, sometimes 10 to 12 hours of walking. You're by yourself, just one step at a time, and that's just a lot of thinking time. A lot of time that you're just in your own head. And so I was able to work through and coach myself through that process and find the healing that I needed. And then by the last couple of weeks of the trip, it was more like, I don't want this to end because I have to go back home and start all over again and do the thing, which I was anxious and excited to start a new chapter and a new season, but also I'm like, I just want to keep doing this. I just want to keep walking. I just want to keep going and keep advocating and talking to people and stuff. And um, mentally, physically, and emotionally, it's certainly challenging. There's challenges that come up along the way, but it's so worth it. So even in the days since, there's always little moments to, I guess, little lessons that I've learned along the way for myself and that I've carried and I needed to learn while I'm walking and that was a big one that first year. Just trying to find myself through self-coaching and working through hurts that I was experiencing at the time too.
So do you think that you walking is therapeutic for you and has helped you out in these numerous ways when it comes to your own personal mental health?
I look at so I'll be 36 this month actually, and looking at my adult years, from graduating high school to now, 18 years, wow. 18 years of adult life, and I realized that a lot of times when I was either in a transitional season or things weren't quite working out, I always resorted to walking. And I didn't realize it, but I just did it. Like I had some free time, even if it was the middle of the night and I couldn't sleep, I would get up and go for a walk somewhere. Which I know sounds dangerous and stupid, but um, I guess instead of just laying in bed and worrying about things or thinking about life, I would just go walk somewhere and do it at the park or Lake Michigan here. We have, parks that have the pier and the lighthouse and the beach. So I'd go walk by the beach and stuff and just do my deep pondering over there. So, you know, yeah, walking is very therapeutic for me. It is a tool. It is a huge um asset to that brings me, I guess, some comfort and an opportunity to take a canvas and like map out my thoughts and just lay them out and try to sort through them. And if I'm in a season where I need to make a game plan so I can work through something, that's just my way of like um I guess like organizing everything and going from there.
No, that's cool. I think that, a number of people will come on this podcast or other platforms. And when they talk about mental health, they're always saying, go to therapy or do the same things that everyone else is recommending. But obviously, like one thing doesn't work for every single person. And I did an episode a few weeks back talking about different modalities of therapy. And for some people, exercise or just walking, I think when you're walking outside, you're hitting a number of modalities because not only are you getting the exercise piece, but you're getting fresh air, you're getting different scenery, you're disrupting yourself when you're maybe in the middle of a crisis or you can't think. I mean, within that you can walk in different places, you can meet different people. I mean, there's so many things. You can bring the creative side out because you talked about mapping. Like walking around Lake Michigan, obviously there's like logistical pieces to that and mapping that out. And so there's so many different things that you can hit. And so I think that is just giving a different option for those people that maybe aren't comfortable talking to a therapist or maybe aren't comfortable talking to someone else. Can I ask, like, what have you, from people that you've met and stories that you've heard, what have you gotten out of that from a personal standpoint and then also from like an advocacy standpoint? What has that done for you?
When I took off the first year, I just wanted to commemorate our brother that we lost. And when I first took off and said I wanted to fundraise and amplify message, I didn't fully know what that meant. I didn't fully anticipate the magnitude of the effect of the suicide epidemic. And I did not anticipate how many people would want to gather around uh, these walks. Whether they come out and find me on the road or through social media or whatever it may be. I guess I didn't fully understand what it meant to amplify a message, let alone how much it meant to other people to talk about something and whatnot. And that's not a pat on the back by any means. It's more like I didn't know what I was doing when I took off. Not just from a physical aspect as far as like how I'm gonna make it around the lake. I had no idea what I was doing in terms of truly bringing a story and a cause to the forefront and giving others a platform to share their story and their thoughts and their concerns and their questions and whatnot. And I'm still learning things today, even too. I mean, like I'm doing normal life with school and other things, but like when I talk about advocacy, aside from the other, you know, 2 months out of the year when I'm walking around the lake, it's like, what am I doing for the advocacy? Am I really helping the cause by doing public speaking engagement or by just posting on social media, or what does it mean to really advocate and whatnot? And so I've learned a lot about that word in general, and I'm still learning, and I will have a lot to learn. But um it the topic of suicide and mental health, going back to your point, like the solution isn't the same for everybody. When we talk about our physical health, you know, so many of us as adults complain about our weight and being healthy, but like different things work for different people. It's not always just vegetables and pounding water or just more exercise. The solution for each person is different, and because our bodies are different. And that goes for what's on the inside too. When we're struggling with our mental health, the symptoms for each person are different. If you're suicidal or have depression or anxiety, it looks different to different people. So why would the solution be the same for each person? It's not as easy as just going outside or as easy as just go work out more or be healthier. And it's certainly not a light switch for anybody. I was grateful for myself, when I really struggled 9 years ago, that I just had to make some life changes and develop better habits. And I had to sit down with a pen and paper and really write out what I wasn't happy with in my life and what I wanted out of life. And when I started to pursue those things one at a time, then the tides changed. And so I found my root cause. But again, for each person, it's different. And so I'm um I'm learning more symptoms and I'm learning more solutions through other people's stories. And the more we all talk about it, the more that we all share and we're transparent and willing to meet each other halfway, the more that we will together change the tide and make a huge difference for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, another thing that isn't really talked about enough too is the how when we are active duty, we are putting our body in such a state of constant stress and we're eating like crap and like, trying to unlearn all these things at one time when we separate from the military. And it sounds like you separated right after a deployment. So you had that added layer on top of everything too. But what I also really noticed in your story is how much you are constantly learning and reflecting and adjusting. Because not everyone is able to connect those dots and say, like, oh, well, when I was younger, I used to walk a lot. Walking seems to be something that works for me now. Maybe this is something that helps center me and ground me. Not everyone connects those dots, and sometimes it takes a really long time, but it also takes that work, that personal work of understanding, like, hey, not only is this a journey where we're constantly learning, and it sounds like you're also taking other people's stories and figuring out, like, maybe if this worked for them, this would work for me too. And so I think there's so much beauty in that of taking a different approach to mental health that not only is serving others around you, but it's also giving so much back to you. I mean, I'm sure you get so much out of what you do while at the same time giving back to others. So I just wanted to recognize that because I think that's incredible.
I just had this analogy pop in my head, and this is so random, so forgive me if it doesn't fit, but I don't know if you ever saw the movie A Bug's Life when you were a kid.
Yep.
All these ants are working together to like gather whatever food they can for the season and be there for each other and working together, so on and so forth. And I think this cause is a lot like that, where we're just trying to gather whatever we can, even if it's not for ourselves. It could be for somebody else that could be helped through what we learn about ourselves. And we're just trying to gather whatever nutrients that we can save and hold on to for the sake of taking care of one another. So it's definitely a blessing. And here in Michigan, where we have not always the best weather, I think for me early on, I don't hate winter. We have a lot of people here who hate the winter. I've It's easier said than done, but I've always believed that if you can embrace, well, we heard the term embrace the suck, um, that you'll learn to have a different mindset about it. And I think that when it comes to like, the weather is one example, but when it comes to embracing something that you can't change, if you have no power over it, if you can work through it and find a way to appreciate it, and even embrace it, it does so much for the mindset. And for some people that means just moving away, which is fine too, to each their own. But I think I'm also reminded through this that if we can find a way to embrace things that we can't change and or stop trying to change them ourselves, it does a lot for us. And I think that in our own life journeys, as we encounter different hurdles, we have to keep that mindset, because if we keep trying to like, you know, steer a ship that's not meant for us to steer, then we're going to grow more frustrated, more stressed, and more bitter and angry too. Even I look back at my mental health journey, and I know that when I was at my worst, I became a very um, bitter, angry person, and I've said and done things that I'm not proud of and stuff. But that's part of learning who we are and growing and becoming self-aware, so that in the future we don't do those things again. And two, we learn how we can teach others through our mistakes too, and be like, hey, don't be a turd because I was, and this is who I became through it. So I
Yeah.
know that was a lot of different points in that one blip, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No, no.
those are just
That's
little nuggets I've learned. So
That's great. I think that these are the things that people don't want to talk about. These are the things that people don't want to hear, because what it requires setting pride aside, personal pride. And a lot of veterans have a really hard time with this, especially the, guys and gals that did like 20, 30 years, right? Like it's very, very hard to humble oneself enough to say like, hey, there was a time in my life when I was hurting, so I hurt other people, and I'm sorry for that, and I recognize that. But I also understand that because I'm recognizing that, it's making me a better person today. And then also recognizing, like all these things that we've gone through in our life, and not only giving ourselves grace, but at the same time asking others to give us grace. I mean, that people don't like to talk about it because it makes us feel like, oh, at some point I was a bad person, and no one wants to be a bad person, right? But we all go through shit in our lives, and
mhm.
that's okay. And we're all learning and growing constantly, and lifting others up at the same time. And it's so true. All of us that are mental health advocates, and I've met so many people just through doing this podcast alone, and it's like we're all doing our little part. I'm in Washington State, you're in Michigan. I've met people all across the US, all across the world, and we're all doing our part. And I've had people tell me before, what are you going to do as one person to change mental health for military and veterans? And I'm like, me alone, just changing one life is, I did my job, I did my part, right? But when we combine together, and we really use our forces as mental health advocates across the US, I mean, it's incredibly powerful. And I truly, at my core, believe that if we work together, we can not only change lives, but we can change the organizations, and we can be loud enough of a voice to say like, hey, something's wrong and something needs to change. Because I truly don't think that people know just how bad it really is unless you've gone through
Right,
it. And then,
right.
that's where we have to talk about our stories and share our stories and let people know. Because I've had people, I tell them just snippets of things and their jaws drop to the floor and they're like, oh, I didn't realize it was that bad. So I don't
Mm.
know if you've experienced that at all, when talking to people or just sharing, just parts of mental health for military and vets. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think working together, it's what's going to change things.
for sure. Working together. Speaking on that part, I know that there's definitely a lot of naysayers for sure. I've only had one direct troll on social media, but after that first walk, I had the opportunity to share with different platforms like Fox News and CNN and MSNBC News and a handful of other ones. And going through all the comments on these threads, they don't realize that we see those comments. And there are, of course, plenty of people that had negative things to say, like, oh, how does that change anything? How does walking change anything? Or how does, it must be nice to not work for 6 weeks and just bum off other people and all these other things. And I didn't take any of that personally. If anything, I laughed. But also to me, I'm like, how can you be so narrow and shallow minded to not understand that if one person is affected through our efforts and what we do, then it's just one piece of the puzzle. Look at the paintings that Monet did. Every dot mattered, every little dot mattered in that artwork. And when it comes to advocacy, it's the same thing. Each one of our dots, each person that's fighting for that cause, we all matter. If we're helping one person, put down the gun or put away the weapon, whatever it is, then mission accomplished. Even if we delayed it, if we stopped it, whatever it is, even if we we led that person to a resource that could have helped them, led them to somebody else that could have saved them, then mission accomplished, And so, yeah, each one of us is making a difference one way or another. Even the person that's not on social media, or the person that's just doing it through kind gestures out in the streets or in their place of work. We all have the power to advocate and to lead, and it doesn't require a huge YouTube channel or podcast or even walking. It just, our small gestures go a long way too. And so, um, yeah, every ounce counts.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I got to ask why. I know you said this a little bit earlier, but maybe you can expound on it a little bit more. Why did you choose Mission 22 as the organization to support?
They just had the in terms of the presence in the military community, they just had a pretty big presence. A lot of veterans I knew were aware of Mission 22, and I'd seen that they do a lot for you know men and women all over the country through bringing in ambassadors and other groups in each state. They're headquartered in Oregon actually, but they work nationwide to bring together veterans for different events, whether it be outdoor events, recreational events, or helping veterans find you know professional therapy sessions and counseling. During COVID, I know they had an initiative where they were helping veterans with groceries and whatnot, and in utility bills even too, because during that first year especially, so many people were affected by not working and whatnot, and they were there to jump on that and help out. So each year I've just been led to help them out. I This year I know it's gonna be a little bit different. My plan is to bring more light to some local organizations. Here in Michigan, we do have a lot of great resources, and down the road, if I ever do the same lake or a different lake, my intention will be to reach out to more local organizations as well too, and bring light to them, because it's anybody who has a nonprofit or who has a small business of any kind knows how tough it is to get yourself out there, especially in today's world where social media is a great asset and it's a great tool, but it's a crowded environment,
Oh,
between
yeah.
Instagram and Facebook. So um, if I can help out any local organizations in that way, through public speaking or the walking, then I certainly plan to do that.
Awesome. So, where do you see yourself going with your cause and what you're doing? What are your future plans, if any, right now?
Well, every year I keep telling myself this is the last one. This is the last one. But then as and I say that usually because it just doesn't seem feasible for someone to be able to do such an adventure, because it takes like 2 months to do, the whole lake. Oh, well, it didn't last time. But like, if I'm still in a season of life where I have the time, I have the means, um, then I'm gonna try to just keep doing something. So like, I don't have a family to take care of. I don't have wife or kids. I'm just now finishing school. I'll be starting a career, here pretty soon down the road, and I'm still trying to piece some things together for the end of the year. So now it's just by the grace of God that I have the time again to do another walk. So as long as I can keep walking, keep moving, and advocating, then I think I'm just going to take it year by year. Um, I've had some friends reach out and offer to help start a nonprofit so I can kind of make some aspects of advocating little bit easier. In some ways, it'd be more challenging. Um, it's it's a thought, but I'm not sure yet. I guess I'm still trying to figure some things out, 4 years into this. So
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
see.
One step at a time. Well,
Yeah.
cool. Where can we find you? Where can we support you?
Instagram and Facebook. My handle is at Travis Hikes Lake MI. Um, Following along is a huge help. I haven't, I guess, formally posted anything on social media about the next walk, but I will be this week still. I'll make a post about it, and then I'll be announcing a fundraiser at the end of this month as well too, that we have taking place here in Michigan. But any help from anywhere is greatly appreciated in terms of fundraising and amplifying the message.
Awesome. Well, as usual, I'll post all those links in the show notes for anyone that wants to check that out and support. I will be following along on your journey. I am so excited to watch that. And I really, really appreciate you coming on the show today. What are some last words that you want to leave with the listeners, Travis?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, what you've been through, what you've accomplished or haven't accomplished. Just sort of a simple reminder that you have a purpose and you have a reason to be here today. You're not an accident. You're loved. You're desired. You're worthy of all the love in the world and success just as much as anybody else. And if you're ever feeling like your emotions or your mental state is not on par, I encourage you not to be afraid to reach out to somebody, speak up, and because your story could be the story that someone else needs to hear down the road in the future.
Thank you for taking the time to listen in today. With your support, we are able to increase awareness of the mental health issues affecting service members and veterans today with the goal of creating positive change. If you got value from this episode, please take 30 seconds to subscribe and share this episode within your own network. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.